And I'm a junior here at Country Day, and I apologize in advance if I lose my voice. It's been kind of going in and out all day. But I'm an AP photography, and for my sustained investigation, I wanted to focus on how the composition of portraits creates meaning and depth, and how manipulating how a piece is actually made conveys a deeper meaning. And I focus this mostly on florals and bouquets because I have never liked taking photographs of people, and I found that by taking photographs of plants, that there's a layer of texture and complexity that I think would be lacking if I took images of people. And so my 5 selected images that I used are broken down into different categories. And so I have more macro-based photography, which is more close up. I have studio lighting, and then I have colored lighting, along with various collages that serve as intermediaries between those. So yeah. So these are the first of my process images, and the one in the bottom, the brightest, the sunflower, is obviously macro photography, and it is taken outside. And I really like this image because it was really the jumping off point for this idea of wanting to take close-up photos, but I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it. And so this image allowed me to kind of experiment with what bounds I could use. The image above it of the iris is done in a similar way, a little bit further away, but still in the studio lighting. And then the image to the left of the vase with the studio lighting is really just showing some of that process that Ms. Brand asked about earlier. So that would be one of my process images showing that lighting setup. And then the 2 images on the right of the more formalized portraits of the vases, I think really show the form, but I didn't think there was enough to it, because saying the form is different just by the way the things are placed, I don't think there's enough there to really kind of go on with that. But these allowed me to really transition into more focused images that I'm going to show you now. So this first one is of an iris, and this is taken in studio lighting. And what I really love about this image is how the focus isn't on at least for me, it isn't on the plant itself. It's on these dewdrops, and it's on the transparency of the petals, and how there's so much more added because of the fact you're so close up. And I think this is really interesting to think about, because you would not be able to notice these details if it was a traditional stiff portrait from further away. Only when you're actually close up can you see these tiny details, and that's showing how the actual composition of the image, by being close up, by being well lit, is really creating this emphasis on the inordinary. This next image is a collage, and it is in this more portrait style, but what I really liked about this was how the image itself in the background is shot on this, or is printed on a very glossy paper, and this makes a very stiff, a very bright, vivid look. However, I then collaged it in another print of this image on a more matte piece of paper, and then layered it above it. And I think this really, it adds a level of softness. You can see the different tones, you can see how it's less vivid, but also then by connecting it back in the bottom with the glossy paper layered on top, you're getting this sense of movement and how they can blend together. This is actually, it looks better, I mean, this is a physical piece, so it's outside and everything, but it looks better there just because with the lighting, it's a little hard to get that depth shown through here. But I think it's really interesting how even by just changing the media, the way the image looks and the way different aspects of it are drawn out really change how it's perceived, and especially how it feels really stiff and really more like a portrait on one side, whereas the other side it feels a lot softer and more intimate. And that will be like a theme that is going to come through in some of the other images. This image is collage, but rather than being a collage through material or media, it's a collage of the actual plants. And I really like this because it's a little bit odd, and it's a little bit structured in a way, despite being very random. And I think the way that these different plants and different colors and textures combined together are very cohesive despite being so different and nothing be related. I mean, there's ivy, there's dogwood flowers, there's daisies, there's honeysuckle, there's what's the other one? Yeah, those are just
Azalea.
some of them there.
I think azaleas.
Yeah, azaleas, that's what it is. So I like how by combining all these little different elements, it feels very connected despite being so different. And I think that was what I really wanted to get out of one of my collaged pieces, is that because the one prior, it was the same image, just different material, just different medias. This one, completely different actual pieces, but it feels very connected and it feels very unified despite being different. These are some of my processes for the colored writing, because like I said, I had some more colored images, and these were some that I took. I really wanted to explore through the colored writing more on the highlighting aspect and more on how you can find different, how you can highlight different textures, but also how you can highlight different elements. And so I like these images because the one on the far left is, you have your purple background, which I think really emphasizes the purple in the iris, but also it feels very light in a way. The one in the more yellow lighting has a little bit of a halo around in the back, and I think that's really interesting because I didn't mean to do that. It just happened when I looked at the photos through editing, and I think that adds a really interesting aspect. And then these final two were again just kind of figuring out what lighting I liked and how I could really extract different elements. So this image is kind of a collage in a way. It is the same. It's the same iris leaves just woven together. And I took this in colored lighting and not in colored lighting. I don't know where the not colored lighting went. I was trying to find it. But I really liked how by using the colored lighting, you get different highlights and you get different tones on the actual woven leaves, and how that the individual ridges within the plant are emphasized more or less depending on how close it is to light. And I think this really shows the effect that lighting and colored lighting has on texture, and how that is brought out so much more when you're manipulating it. And then this one, I used the highlighting of the pink light to focus more on those top flowers, and then the overall lighting to be this more warm yellow, light yellow. And I really liked this image because I felt it was very soft. It felt very, again, not that stiff portrait people are used to. It feels very close and very delicate in a way, but then also you have this harsh, I mean, these colors are very different. There's this idea of these harsh contrasts, but they don't feel harsh. They're very blended and they're very, I would say even muted in some certain areas. And so I think experimenting with how the different lighting and how the different highlighting contributed to different highlights was really important, and I think that was something that can really be seen in this image. And